Since ancient times, mankind has had a connection to plants of all kinds. We use them for food and enjoy their beauty, and sometimes the pleasure of growing and caring for them enriches our lives. We'll find out more next on Show Me Ag. Welcome to Show Me Ag. I'm your host, Kyle Vickers. Thanks for joining us. Growing and cultivating plants is really the oldest profession. From the first days when hunter-gatherers decided to intentionally grow certain crops known for food or health benefits, to today's thriving horticulture industry, mankind has learned to appreciate the beauty and usefulness of cultivating plants for our purposes. We have as our guest Pete Millier from the University of Missouri, where he supervises a beautiful landscaping on campus and directs the Mizzou Botanic Garden. Pete, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
My family and I were together on the university campus last weekend, and we couldn't help but comment how beautiful it was. So my congratulations, first of all. You've really done a fantastic job. But it's more than just looks. There's a lot of science going on there too.
There is, and that's part of the fun of getting to do what we do, because we get to partner with a lot of different academic departments. We actually do more with the College of Engineering in the area of stormwater research than any other department, but it is challenging and fun because we're taking it to the next level.
But it's really a unique situation where the entire campus, it's not just lawns and maintenance, there's really, you consider the whole campus a botanic garden. That's unusual.
Well, it is. It's a little different than most botanic gardens. Most botanic gardens have fences and charge for admission, and they're looking for ways to get people to come to their garden, and we don't do that. We have folks already who live in our garden. We have about 7,000 that live there, and it's not a challenge for us to get 40,000 people a day in and out of the garden. It's how to grab their attention while they're there. That's what we're up to. How
did this evolve? That I was on campus many years ago, and the biggest problem was don't walk on the grass. But it's gone way beyond that. It's just a beautiful campus all over.
It actually goes back to 1980 and Chancellor Barbara Ewing, who had the vision to unify and beautify the campus. And the Mizzou Botanic Garden is the next step in the evolution of how to continue to beautify the campus. That's our primary goal, to continue to beautify the campus, but it's also to provide academic opportunities in the campus landscape for a diverse number of classes.
That unique nature of your campus, the Botanic Garden, attracted somebody from PBS, nationally known P. Allen Smith. He was on hand to honor Thomas Jefferson and moderate a panel discussion on locally grown produce and help inspire the next generation of home gardeners.
I'm in Columbia, Missouri because of, well, their interest in Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was a great gardener, and there's a connection to the University of Missouri in that they actually have on campus Mr. Jefferson's tombstone. In April, we celebrate Thomas Jefferson's birthday, and this year Thomas Jefferson was 271 years old. So we're talking about Mr. Jefferson's horticultural life, his interests as a gardener, and how that applies today. Why is it relevant today? It's really interesting. Mr. Jefferson was first in many things. We consider him the first foodie. We consider him the fellow who brought grape or wine culture to America. Even though his attempts were thwarted by disease and other problems, he was still very much a proponent of America producing its own wine. And he was also very much someone who was interested in local food. And you might think, well, of course, in those days, all food was local. But when he became President of the United States in 1801, in the President's house, which we call the White House today, he had a French chef and a French maitre d', and he would send them into the farmers markets and pay the top price for the best vegetables being produced. And he was very well known for gathering seeds from the embassies in Washington, D.C. and sharing them with his friends and sharing them with these farmers to get new plants in production, and then he would be a patron of them. So he was very much, I guess, first in local food. There are many things going on in the culture today that are driving this interest in food. I think we can certainly thank our friends who are chefs who have been on the Food Network and lots of these television shows. Chefs and farmers have now been raised up to celebrity status. I think that's influencing things, but I think the deeper current really comes from people wanting to feel more self-sufficient. That's why we see this explosion in interest in keeping a few backyard chickens. We see municipalities around the country changing their ordinances and allowing a few laying hens in the backyard, which is a lovely thing, really. And then I think that we see with industrial agriculture in the news these issues that come up with, salmonella in chicken or E. coli in spinach. And anytime we have one of these outbreaks, it just drives people into their backyards, and they look around and they think, hey, I've got space, I've got some time, maybe this would be good for our family to grow some of this food together. And I think these are the sorts of things that are fueling this interest in people wanting to know where their food comes from and embracing the idea of local. One of the most exciting things I think about the local food movement is the conversation. There are a lot of conversations going on and people coming together. What we have going on at the University of Missouri at Columbia today is a roundtable discussion where leaders in the local food movement are coming together, and we're all talking. And I think one of the most important things to do is to connect the producer of food with the consumer of food, because I think that often they're missing one another. And I think to really bolster this movement, to help these folks begin a conversation with one another. Oh, hey, I didn't know you did that. Oh, you're growing that? Oh, we want that in our restaurant. It's amazing how these things can come together. In my own state of Arkansas, we are working with our Department of Agriculture, and we're creating what's called Arkansas Grown. Not unlike what you're doing here in Missouri. And it's really about getting everybody together in a room and talking about what each group's needs are and coming up with solutions, connecting the dots. The beauty of a botanical garden is that it allows people to engage and interface with nature and to be surrounded by beauty. I think as humans, it's in our DNA to be drawn to beauty and to reach out to nature. But I think that in our fast-paced, high-tech world that we all live in, everybody's running around with these little devices and gadgets. We're becoming more and more disconnected. And what's beautiful about the University of Missouri, Columbia, the entire campus really is becoming a botanical garden. And so you have 40,000 people in this community every day interfacing with the beauty that surrounds them, interfacing with nature. And it creates an environment that maybe we can't quantify, but certainly it is impacting us. I think being surrounded by beauty and nature impacts our well-being, and if we're feeling good and we're feeling good about ourselves, then we respond to one another in a different way. I'd love to imagine a world where this sort of beauty surrounded everyone. It'd be interesting to see how it might change attitudes and views, and I just think the world would be a better place.
P. Allen Smith is in his 14th season of Garden Home and is the 4th season of Garden to Table. If you'd like to learn more about P. Allen Smith's shows and his new initiative, Kids Planet Earth, designed to get children excited about gardening, you can visit him online at pallensmith.com. And I'd also like to mention, according to the internet, if it can be believed, he has a beautiful garden and house down in Little Rock, Arkansas that's open to visitors as well. The scenes that we see there in their little film clip, my goodness, you've got a beautiful campus going.
Well, thank you. It's a labor of love for a lot of folks.
Mr. Smith talked a little bit about how this thing seems to be catching fire, so to speak. Local foods, growing things. Have you found that in your career over time? Is there gotten to be a lot more interest?
I think it's true. You know, gardening is America's #1 hobby, but I think there was a period of time when it became easier to go to the market and pick up whatever it was you needed. But I think people are looking a little beyond that anymore, and part of it's economic, and part of it's also there's a desire to be reconnected with the natural world, and what better way to do that than to have your own vegetable garden, because you'll certainly be connected with nature.
Are you doing some food crops on campus as well as the flowers and so on?
The children's learning garden is growing food crops, and that was a partnership that we had with the College of Human and Environmental Sciences, and it was in one of your clips just now. And it is the only fruit producing or food producing garden that we have. We do have some fruiting trees on the campus, but I've yet to see any produce from them. I think they get picked before
they get stolen?
Well, we have a few raccoons on the campus that like pawpaws and the like.
So is this for Columbia schools only, or can others come visit?
Well, the unique thing about our learning garden, children's learning garden, is that it's a collaboration between the Botanic Garden and the Children's Development Lab. And they are taking 4- and 5-year-olds that are in, it's an educational daycare. They take them out there small groups at a time, and they actually get to get their hands dirty. They have a pit designed just for kids to get their hands in the dirt and dig and do stuff. So it's really it's an outdoor classroom experience for these kids.
And the way we grew up, following our mom around in the garden, we didn't have to worry about that. But for a lot of kids, they don't have that opportunity at all.
Well, and they don't. And I think that's because a lot of people live in a city, and they don't have access to a spot of earth that they can call their own and do this. There's also food deserts. Many inner cities, there's no grocery store that has fresh produce. And there is a movement to put in more inner city gardens that people can participate in.
I think there's some very successful ones. We've done some shows in the past in some of our city areas, and then the growth in farmers markets has been huge in Missouri as well.
Tremendous. We had one on campus this morning. It's the last one for the spring semester, but they were doing a lively business on campus.
The thing that's amazing to me is that by turning this whole campus into a botanic garden, it's huge.
It is, and it also allows us the opportunity to do things like bring P. Allen Smith to campus. And beyond P. Allen, it's also bringing that diverse group of people that participated in the roundtable. We had 18 people besides Mr. Smith participate, and they came from all 4 corners of the state to be a part of this. So we provide the venue and the opportunity to have this discussion about local food.
I assume it's also a learning opportunity. You mentioned cooperation with some of the colleges, engineering in particular, but others. It's a learning opportunity for students as well.
It is. This morning we were in a capstone biology class, and these are not plant science people. These are people who are going to go on to become doctors and nurses and do great things. But the class, the intent was to connect them with the natural world so that they would have a better appreciation of not only the campus, but also the world that they live in.
Again, years ago, it was just a big sprawling campus with lots of concrete and bare dirt where lawns used to be. Has this transformation been difficult, and is it expensive?
Not as you would think. A lot of what we do as Mizzou Botanic Garden is privately funded. And so we have a cadre of devoted supporters that help us. We do some fundraising. But it's been a labor of love for probably the last 30 years. We've only been a Botanic Garden for 15 years this summer.
I know we're very fortunate in Missouri. The Kansas City Botanic Gardens, Powell Gardens, and then in St. Louis. This is really unique amongst the states in it to have this much of an opportunity.
It is, but I think that's part of what makes Missouri, Missouri, is that we have these opportunities that other states would like to have. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity for the citizens of the state to get out and enjoy their state.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the St. Louis Botanic Garden started with the World's Fair. Is that right?
Actually, it predates that. Mr. Shaw's Garden, as it was called, he was a tinkerer. He sold pots and pans to people moving west in the 1800s, and that's how he made his fortune. and he always wanted a garden, and so Shaw's Garden became Missouri Botanical Garden.
Well, it's do you cooperate between the three? And
oh yes, we do quite a bit. We're all participants in a wonderful program called Grow Native that emphasizes the growing of native plants in the landscape, some of which produce food. But we're truly partners in a lot of the efforts that we do. We don't really see ourselves as rivals. We have different missions than they do, but we're all in that same area.
So I know you've got a map, which I wish we could reproduce for the viewers, but you have them available. If you were coming to the university campus, what are some of the highlights that you think people should visit?
Well, without a doubt, the number one highlight is the Francis Quad, and it's not just because we have Thomas Jefferson's original tombstone there, but it's because of all the gardens around the Francis Quad. It's a beautiful expanse of turf with the columns from Academic Hall, but it also has these pocket gardens all around it, and that's not something you see on most college campuses.
It's really an iconic image of the columns that all of us identify with the University of Missouri, and it's now surrounded by these gardens.
True, and it's just I think students that attend the University of Missouri are truly fortunate that they get to be in this little piece of earth that is so beautiful and also so historical.
And are there other areas then outside of the quadrangle that people should definitely see?
Well, we have 18 gardens on the campus, named gardens. There are many more pocket areas that we have that we don't list in our garden map. We were thinking of some of those areas yesterday for another class that is interested in doing some sort of scavenger hunt, and they wanted it to be a little more offbeat. We have a beautiful garden in the School of Medicine that's surrounded by buildings, and it has a little macabre touch to it. Right next door is the morgue. So, but it's a beautiful little garden, and it is very peaceful in there. And
do you have greenhouses then that grows the plants and so on, or how does that work?
We have some really good partnerships. The CMSC is a private nonprofit that is a sheltered workshop that does a lot of growing with us. They're right there in Columbia. We do a lot of contract growing with other vendors. And then we do have greenhouse space of our own that we overwinter a lot of the tropicals that we use on the campus.
Missouri weather as a farmer, it's getting increasingly challenging, but I assume there's a lot of challenges to maintaining this garden. What are some of your biggest problems?
Well, probably the biggest challenge is you want to have everything looking at its best every day of the week. And that's just not possible. So you have targets. You know, Friday is our big target on a weekly basis to have the campus looking great, because a lot of families come to the campus on the weekend. Next week is a really big week for us. We call it our Super Bowl because parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, family are coming to see their child graduate. And we want them to be assured that the University of Missouri is well worth the investment they made in their child's education.
It really it adds so much to you just can feel the quality of the campus, and that's from visual observation. You can just feel it, can't you?
It is a unique sense of place, and I recall my first visit to the campus. I knew nothing about the academic programs, and it was a very cold day in December of 2004, and I had on every stitch of clothing I owned because I'm from California, and I was down at Tiger Plaza looking at Jesse Hall, and it was a beautiful blue sky, and I thought, why didn't I go to school like this? And I think it's an inspiring moment like that we want to instill in students.
You mentioned graduation being a Super Bowl, but next fall be some big Saturday afternoons on campus as well.
That has been a lot of fun. Being a member of the SEC, the folks from the visiting schools have been great. Particularly fond of the University of Georgia. Some of their retired faculty are some of the big names in horticulture, and they've been to our campus and they've raved about what we've done. So it's great to have the SEC schools come.
Well, that whole SEC thing, I think some of us were a little skeptical about it, but it just really elevates everything about the campus and the challenges that go along with being one of the top schools in the country.
It does, but you know, you set the bar high and you reach it, and it's good for everybody.
One of the things that when we're visiting different places and you see a flower or a tree that you really can appreciate, but you don't know what it is, and you think, well, I'd like to take that home. But you've got a kind of a unique approach to that too, don't you?
Well, we invest a lot in signage. If you walk around the Francis Quad, many of those perennial gardens that dot the buildings on the quad, there's a lot of signage. Now, it gets a little chaotic sometimes on Friday and Saturday in the wee hours, because there's nothing quite like pulling a few out and moving them around. But it is something that, as a botanic garden, you invest in education, and this is one of those passive ways that you can educate visitors to your garden.
But you've also got a barcode system that's adding to that, or is that in the development?
Well, we're using QR codes, and it's kind of interesting because I'm not a techie, but a lot of our students are, and it's really a technique for us to grab their attention for just a few minutes out of the day. It's neat to watch them see that QR code. They'll scan it, they'll go to our website, and you'll just see this look of amazement. Oh, it's this planting right here, and that's a cool thing, because it gets them engaged in the garden.
Okay, let me ask you this. I know that chemical fertilizers, chemical treatments, and so on are pretty controversial. As we talk about local food, the organic movement in Missouri is pretty strong. Are you organic? Are you chemically enhanced?
We do use some synthetic fertilizers, but we do not do any widespread insecticide applications. We use some general herbicides to control weeds, but that's simply because there's not enough labor available to do hand weeding. The interesting thing about this children's learning garden is that they have a partnership with the USDA researchers on the campus, both for space and also for the release of some predatory insects in their little vegetable garden. Now, I did not know this till just the other day, and it is such a cool thing because they're putting out these predators. They're killing the flea beetles that are going after their spinach. So that's why they have this picture-perfect spinach. They don't use pesticides at all in there.
Well, that's amazing. I think it's a really unique situation when you've got some of the top plant people in the country there right on campus that you can work with.
It's extremely helpful when you have them right there. And I think that, again, that's part of our role as a botanic garden, is to bring people together who have the same interests, but they may not know each other. And we bring them together and get the conversation started.
So you've got some collaboration going, and again, from throughout the state.
We do. The roundtable that Mr. Smith moderated, we had representation from all four corners of the state. And that was very important for us to not just have a local Boone County feel to it. We wanted the entire state represented. I
will mention one other thing, and it may not be connected to you at all, but we also visited Jefferson City, the Capitol grounds, last week. And oh my goodness, perfectly maintained, beautiful flowers, wonderful grass. It's really pretty spectacular. If you're coming to mid-Missouri, a stop at both places would be great.
I think that's in order to visit both gardens. And Columbia has a plethora of other locations. Shelter Garden is
also a beautiful spot.
Beautiful little gem of a garden in Columbia.
So I know probably you're planning for the future. What improvements? What's your main goal over the next few years?
The next few years, it's probably going to be fundraising for me.
Unfortunately, that's a part of life.
It's part of what I was hired to do. But it's also, how do we expand what we're doing to reach more students and engage more faculty in the Botanic Garden idea, and convince them that there is an outdoor space that they can utilize.
Well, I think it would be a real recruitment tool for some folks, not only to come to such a beautiful campus, but also to come and be able to study and learn in this area. Well,
it has been identified in many studies as one of the top reasons somebody picks a school to attend or to teach at or do research at, is that first 15 minutes that you're on campus, that kind of moment that you want to engage them in that notion. And I think that at the University of Missouri, we do that and then some.
Well, I agree. I think I've had two boys that have kind of made that choice, and then another one on the way. And
Excellent.
It's impressive to see, like I said, quality just abounds. You can kind of feel it and see it. And so I appreciate your part in that. And we're very proud in our state to be able to have this available. So,
well, thank you.
I want to thank you very much. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for tonight. And I'd like to say thanks again to Pete Millier for being with us. And thanks to P. Allen Smith for allowing us to visit with him as well. Before we go, we'd also like to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in to Show Me Ag. We hope you'll tune in next time for another look at a topic touching rural Missouri. For everyone here at KMOS and myself, good night. We're also very interested in what you have to say. So if you have feedback you'd like to share with us, you can email us at showmeag@kmos.org or find us on Facebook.